Hello, and today I'm joined by Soumen Das of Segro. He's the CFO and has been there since January 2017. And we're kicking off our Global Cities video series. Number one, can you summarise your business for us, please?
Of course. We are the largest UK and European real estate investment trust, and we specialise in industrial warehousing and logistics properties across the UK and 7 European markets.
OK. And where does the demand come from for this type of real estate?
So it's a really diverse set of customers that we have, ranging from small family-run businesses through to large global logistics players such as DHL. We're fortunate because we benefit from 4 really strong long-term structural trends: data and digitalisation, urbanisation, the supply chain, and sustainability. And the bulk of our demand really comes from one or more of those sources.
OK, fantastic. Now, Segro is a business that we've been looking at for a long period of time, so it'll be interesting to see if your answer corresponds with ours. But what do you regard as the most sort of valuable or kind of the jewel in the crown of Segro's business?
Yeah, of course, it's a good question. And I think what's interesting for us is most of our peer group across, whether it's Europe or more globally, tends to look at big box warehousing, which is a third of our business. But 2/3 of our space is in urban areas, is urban warehousing. And what's interesting to us there is you've got urban populations that are growing, they're consuming more goods, more services, and that creates, we think, terrific demand for our space from our customer base to service those people who live in places like London, Paris and Berlin.
How hard would you say is it to recreate your portfolio, the barriers to entry?
Do you know, I think it's almost impossible to recreate what we have, because when you look at, ultimately, the land physically does not exist in cities like London and Paris and Berlin and others to replicate the portfolio that we've spent, 102 years as a business amassing and pulling together. So I think we are in a very interesting place as a business.
Yeah, it's certainly quite a long track record you got there.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you just referenced 102 years. I was kind of thinking the next 5 years. What sort of excites you most about the business for the next 5 years?
So you know what, we've had a very interesting 2022. The cost of capital has gone up enormously. That's kind of led to valuations falling. But actually, maybe a bit perversely, I look forward from here and actually think that's going to help our business, because a world where capital like us and businesses like us are actually going to be kind of slightly harder to, well, capital's going to be harder to find. We've got great access to really diverse capital, and I think therefore our competitive advantage will actually be greater going forward from here.
And then I've got 2 questions on sustainability. So what's the biggest challenge for the business with regard to sustainability?
Yeah, it's a good question. Sustainability, I think, is something we spend increasing amounts of time looking at and thinking about. I'd say the biggest challenge probably is our biggest opportunity, which is solar.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about warehousing is they are very large buildings these days, and they've got a lot of flat roof space. So we've been looking at how we take that roof space and put solar on it to create green energy for the benefit of our customers. The problem we have, the challenge, is what to do with the excess energy. The grids, national grids of any of the countries we operate in, actually aren't really set up to take that excess energy. And on-site storage hasn't yet kind of developed enough to deal with it. But I suspect technology will ultimately come to the rescue. Yeah,
I remember you mentioning that in a meeting we had a while ago, and it's sort of amazing to think that the grids aren't quite sort of ready to take that excess energy. And then the second sustainability one is, if that's the biggest challenge, what's the best sort of sustainability aspect, if you like, in the portfolio today?
Of course, I think I could reference lots of things, but we kicked off Responsible Segro afresh a couple of years ago. That's our ESG piece and how that knits into our strategy. But what's been fascinating, really great to see, is how all of our colleagues across Europe, across the dozen or so offices we have across the UK and across Europe, have really bought into this. Because actually, we can say what we like from the top, but actually having them really believe it, be really innovative in all of the various ideas, the various initiatives they've kicked off, having customers, having our suppliers buy into it as well. You can just the sheer volume of interesting ideas that we can then use, capitalise on, and actually really kind of improve the way we do business.
Great, thank you. 3 relatively light-hearted questions for you here. So who's the most famous person you've met?
Do you know, I'm terrible at seeing famous people. I once sat next to Cameron Diaz at a restaurant, and the person I was having dinner with, and it took me ages to figure it out. I did bump into Boris a couple of years ago, about 18 months or so ago.
I bumped into him when I was cycling home from work one day as well. Next one, who wins a fight between a lion and a tiger?
The answer's going to be a tiger, only because we went to a tiger reserve over Christmas.
That works for me. And do you prefer cheese or chocolate?
Oh, chocolate.
Okay. And then final question, we run a cities-focused fund, so I've got to ask you, which is your favourite city?
Oh, God, that's a good question. I'll give you three in different continents. I do love London, New York, and my family is originally from Kolkata in India.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for giving us your time today and taking part in the very first Global Cities video series as well. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for asking me.